Hey, this is Mike Matthews from muscleforlife.com, and this is the Muscle for Life podcast. Thanks for listening in. Today I have a great guest, JC Deen from jcdfitness.com. I just met him a week or two ago. Really cool dude, doing good work with mainly with clients, right, JC? You do a lot of coaching.
Yeah, mostly coaching. I sell some products, but yeah.
Yeah, it's true. Also, yeah, you have a couple ebook type or information type products, and I'm going to start doing more guest appearances on podcasts. Just getting out there and starting to meet some people because I've been like a hermit for the last whatever year that I've been doing this. So thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, sure thing. So let's just get right to it. Why don't you share, just in case the readers aren't familiar with you, share a little bit of your, what do you do? What's your story? What motivated you to get fit?
Yeah, so my personal fitness story kind of goes back all the way through, I guess, just my entire life. I mean, I kind of grew up as a chubby kid, and going through school, I was always really conscious about it. It was something that bothered me a lot. And I got into athletics at a pretty young age, and I started.
What sports did you play?
Yeah, so starting out really young, I guess my first sport was like baseball, and then I got into basketball.
Oh, okay.
Going through middle school, I started to get into football.
Okay.
And then as I went on through junior and high school, I kind of just mostly focused on football towards the end. And I loved the strength and conditioning aspect of it. That was one of the things I loved the most. But growing up through school, I was always chubby, and I hated it. And you kind of look at yourself in a certain way. You're growing up through school, and your appearance is everything, and it's kind of a scar that it can leave you with. So when I got out of, I turned out to actually be a pretty good athlete in high school. And then I got done with high school. It was time to go to college. And at that point, I really had nothing to fill my time. I went from being a completely dedicated athlete to having nothing to do after school. So when I got into college, I just immediately got interested in bodybuilding. So I started reading all the magazines, all the books.
Yeah. All the bro
science. All of that, man. And I loved it, and I thought it was awesome. And then the first semester, towards Christmas, I made friends with a ton of guys, and at the end of the fall semester, they always did what's called like a best body contest, which was basically like a big challenge, like how good a shape can we get in the next like 2 months? Like what can we do to change our fat asses to being muscular and ripped. And so what happened was I took that really seriously, and since I had an athletic background, I was like, okay, I can put my mind to this, I can really do this. So I read everything I could, and then I started, just continuous training like 4 or 5 times a week. I was up at 7 a.m. doing cardio before class, and then in about, 2.5 months, 3 months, I was down like 25 pounds, something like that, and nice. I was the leanest I've ever been. Had full row of abs, was pretty muscular, as a 19-year-old kid could be.
Right.
And it changed my life. I was like, there was 15 guys in the contest. I won second place. I won like $300. So that was huge for me. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. This is really fun. And then from then on, I was kind of in my circle in college, in my fraternity and stuff. I was kind of looked at as being the go-to guy for fitness stuff.
Right.
And then from then on out, it just became more and more interesting, and I kept doing it and kept studying it. And then about 2008, I started my blog, and then a couple years later, I started taking it very seriously and started coaching and got certified, and that was basically how I got into it. It was a former fat boy, got into fitness, got in shape, and the rest is history.
Yeah, that's cool. I played ice hockey as a teenager. I played some baseball when I was younger, then I got into ice hockey. And then it was similar, once that was done, I was so used to doing stuff with my body. So where do I go from here? And I guess it was kind of a transition, maybe I was 17 or 18, into weightlifting initially because just to impress girls was my initial motivation. But then like you get into, you start doing it and then get not only motivated by the results that you see, but also just by how your body feels. And there are a lot of other benefits to working out regularly, and it became more of a just a personal kind of, I don't know if I guess you could say a passion, but more just something that became like I can't think of not exercising. It's not about like, oh, not lifting weights, eating protein, you know what I mean? It's more just not using my body, pushing my body, and just all the benefits that come from it. So now it's, something that, yeah, it's cool to look good, but there's a lot more that you get from it,
Yeah, there's a lot to learn from setting out and doing something and being regimented and having some type of structure. And I think for a lot of guys that I've coached, having fitness in their life, having a training routine where they're training 3 or 4 times a week and having that structure and building that confidence, it goes way past just the initial aesthetic, experience or the strength that they gain.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I kind of constantly preach this, but there are definite correlations between what it takes just to get in the gym and get strong and, build muscle, get lean, build the type of body that you want, and also to achieve success and kind of build the life that you want, not in an abstract kind of philosophical sense, but a very practical sense. You have to show up every day. You have to put in the work. It doesn't matter how you feel. You put in your time. You do what you need to do. And just like how a workout doesn't have to feel, it could be, you can have low energy and it can be not a great workout, but you still got something done. And it's like that with anything. You show up to work, you do what you need to do. Some days are better than others. Just because you weren't feeling it one day, who cares? Do the work. You get what you get done. And over time, you kind of build that momentum where you have a lot more good days than bad days,
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, I talk about that in, whatever various articles and stuff, just like some extra motivation beyond. Because in my opinion, if you go too far into if your motivation is just to look a certain way or just impress a girl or a guy or whatever, or just impress girls or guys, I think that that then you can get into the psychological. It becomes unhealthy psychologically, or it can, where people, they get to the point where you can have, I mean, I've come across it where, and maybe you see this a little bit more with people that compete, but where they'll, a person will look great, but they hate their body, they feel they're fat, they nitpick everything on their physique. And it becomes a thing where it's never good enough, and it's like an unhealthy amount of just introversion into merely building muscle and losing body fat. And I think that just going after that leads more to a neurosis than, you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
And we've all experienced that to some degree. Like I can relate to that a little bit, where back in August, I was cutting for photo shoots. So, you get really lean, get to 5 or 6%, and it looks great. And it's not really sustainable. I wouldn't want to stay like that year round. But, then you're like, okay, that's done. I'm gonna start eating more food. And there is that initial like, but I don't want to get fatter.
Yeah.
So it's like taking that to the extreme. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a balancing act and figuring, making it all work mentally as well as physically.
Yeah, totally. So what were some of the biggest challenges that you've faced so far, in achieving your fitness goals? And also, what has helped you kind of overcome them?
Yeah, so the first one that I dealt with the most was what I call the former fat boy syndrome. And actually Men's Health interviewed me about this. They found an old article of mine and interviewed me about the whole conundrum. And I think getting past that was huge. And for me, basically the former fat boy syndrome is, growing up and being chubby or being fat and seeing yourself as this former shell and who you were. You kind of, no matter what you do, no matter how fit you get, you kind of always look in the mirror and it's kind of dysmorphic, you see. Yeah.
So it's similar to what I was just talking about.
Exactly. Yes, yeah. Totally. It's that was the biggest thing that I was, and that's why I resonated with what you were saying. That was my biggest hurdle, as on a personal level. So what I actually did, the way that I got over that the most was, you were saying that it's a constant grind. You do it regardless whether you feel good. You do it, because it's your habit and your routine. So what I actually did is I hired a coach shortly after I had gotten lean for the first time. Because I was still like, even though like I saw pictures where I had full row abs, like my delts, like I could see lines in my delts and like all these, sure signs that I was lean. I was still struggling internally with like the whole, like I would struggle with like, oh, am I going to eat this much? Am I going to get fat? Am I going to go back to the exact person I was 40 pounds ago, whatever?
Yeah.
So I hired a coach and I was like, look, I need expert guidance. When in reality, what I was doing is I was just dumping off all of the thinking onto him. And what was great about that was all the things that I knew I should have been doing, he told me to do anyway. And because I was paying him and because I put faith in him, like I did it instead of sabotaging myself and kind of going back. It's kind of like the big thing you were saying, like, if you eat a little bit more, is it going to like completely ruin everything that you've done? Which we both know is totally crazy. Right. But for some people that have been restricting for a long time, they think that extra 100 calories, or that extra cookie or whatever is going to really do them in.
Yeah. I mean, I'll get emailed. Although I guess a lot of people, if they've read any of my books or if they've kind of like read articles, they're usually, because I talk about this a lot, that it is just a numbers game, and when you understand that, it's not that big of a deal. But yeah, I still get emailed sometimes where people are worried that because they ate too much over the weekend, they feel very guilty or whatever. And I understand that, but as the reality is, it's like, okay, so what? So you were in a surplus for a couple days. The worst case scenario is you set yourself back a few days. Big deal.
Yeah. Even if even that, and that's like,
that. I mean, that's if you overdo it, really. Like if you really work hard at it over the weekend.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I think is so interesting is, we're, especially in this, like, I think humans in general are always in a negative frame of mind. Like we're always thinking about the bad, the bad that can happen, how bad something feels, what we're doing that's detrimental, instead of maybe reframing it and looking at it in a positive light. So yeah, I mean, it's just like I get the same emails, and people will say, like, I actually did a fat loss group on the New Year's to help some of my current customers out with getting kind of started again, and I was like, look, like, let's just do 14 days. Let's be pretty strict. Let's be pretty hard, and then we'll ease up and go back into a moderate style deficit. And one of the guys in the group had come off the diet, and he was like, hey, I really went to town today. It was a kid's party or something like that. And he was like, I ate a bunch of cookies and cakes. And he was like, I really think I need to go to the gym and get on the elliptical and try to like undo some of this damage. And I said, whoa. I was like, how well did you do the rest of the 2 weeks? And he's like, I was spot on, lost like, 6-7 pounds, whatever. And I was like, this is not that big of a deal. If you don't want to go get in the habit of, every time you indulge or any time you go out and you eat something that you think was not in line with what you should have been doing, you don't want to get in the habit of going and getting on the elliptical or going and doing an hour-long session of supersets to try to mitigate some of that stuff. Because then you'll find out that because you want that extra food, you'll mitigate it with exercise 6 times a week.
Exactly.
And then it's like, how sustainable is that, and how healthy is that from a psychological view? So
and also even from a physical view, not that exercising 6 days a week is bad, but if you're doing, I mean, I'll talk with it. I don't run into this as much usually with people that are competing, but where they'll have coaches that'll have them do 2 hours of cardio a day and weightlifting. It's just, it gets insane. And you'll find that at least I run into that food issue with them, where they're also on a severe calorie deficit. So they're just miserable, and sometimes they just give in. It's like they need more food. Really, their coaches are not doing a good job at all. But then what they actually should be eating more and exercising less. So sometimes they'll start to do that, and then they'll feel really like guilty about it, or because they're working toward this goal, and they've put their faith in a bad coach, basically. But
and it's a lot of bad ideas. Like we also, as some people that are like really driven, we tend to get really one track minded. So we tend to think that if something doesn't revolve around a certain method or a certain idea or a paradigm, that everything else is like irrelevant or wrong.
Right.
So we'll make decisions based on whether or not it doesn't fit in line with either what we learned or what our coach told us. And I'm not saying to like your coach or whatever, But at the end of the day, like, there's a million ways to get to this one goal that we all want of a better body.
Right.
It's just a matter of, doing things more properly than others, I guess, is the best way to say it.
Yeah. And, like even a lot of the, I preach a lot of heavy compound weightlifting, not overdoing it with cardio, sticking mainly to high intensity cardio so you can just do less of it and get more out of it. Flexible dieting, make it a numbers game, not a whole the whole eat clean kind of thing is, I agree that eating nutritious foods is important. Your body
Sure.
needs micronutrients, but unfortunately some people, if they don't understand really the physiology of food and what your body does with it, it becomes then this weird rule, this like dogma, eat clean, just gotta eat clean, and then I'll get lean, and it's just, you can eat a ton of clean food every day and not be in shape at all, or not look like you're in shape at all.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's like a lot of this stuff that I'm talking about, is it the ultimate best, end all way to build a great body? No, I don't think that, I'm not saying I have everything figured out, and neither are you or anybody else, but what is encouraging for people is that the methods work, and you make gains quickly enough where you're motivated, you get to see your body change every week, and then ultimately, and also it's very easy to fit these kind of things around, your lifestyle. So then it's like, what else do you want? Great. So now you only have to spend, whatever, 3 to 6 hours a week exercising. You get to eat foods you like. You get to go out to restaurants here and there. You know how to play with your diet. And, so a lot of people, they won't necessarily fall into like, well, if it's not in this little paradigm, I won't do it. But it's even for me personally, it's like, when you put all these things together, it works very easily. So why even do anything else? And it gets me exactly where I want to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think people need to find that, and that's not always the same for everybody.
Yeah, it's not, and it's kind of it's one of those things where you've got to keep working, and you've got to keep trying out different methods and read different resources and try out different things long enough to figure out what works for you. And because, it's like we said, we can get someone lean and feeling good on 3 hours of training a week, and sometimes it might take 6, but it might only take 6 because that's what they really want to do, as opposed to just going to the gym 3 times a week.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
Figure out exactly what makes sense to you and how it can fit into your life, and then make that your slave, and don't become a slave to your exercise or your nutrition program.
Yeah, I totally agree. So what drives you to kind of keep on putting in the work week after week, kind of talking about what we were saying before, where you make it a schedule and you just do it? What drives you?
Yeah, I don't know. I've been doing this I've been really training with the barbell for 14 years now, and I just really like the routine. Honestly, I really just love I love that it's my time and I get to go in and do it. Of course, I love the results. I love looking good and I love feeling good. I love being mobile, and but honestly, it's like, at this point in my life, I would just feel lost if I didn't have that locus of control in my life.
Yeah.
That's honestly what keeps me in. It's such a habit that if I go a couple days, unless it's a planned break, but if I go 3 or 4 days without hitting the gym, I'm just like, what am I doing with my life?
Yeah, I know. Like, I hate, if you get sick or something and you're just forced to sit around and you can't for.
Yeah, and that's the worst too. Like, you usually it happens when you're in a really good groove, or you're like you're starting something new, and it's like you're excited. And then I know that will happen to me. It's happened to me a couple times, and I'll start something new, or I'll plan out a new routine, and then the next thing I know, I'm like getting a chest cold, or I'm getting the flu, or when I was in Thailand, I got food poisoning a couple times, and it's like. Something just puts you down and you get
food
mad.
Poisoning is the worst because you can't even eat. You just sit and waste away for, until you finally get over it, depending how bad it is.
But man, all the water you lose makes your abs look really good.
You're one stomach flu away from your ideal body.
Yeah, it's like me and my roommate. We always joke about it. He's like either one of us will get a stomach bug or something, and be like, man, my life is miserable. I can't leave the house, and my stomach hurts, and I'm like, well, at least your abs are gonna look really great. Like we can go do a photo shoot right now, and you'll have those pictures forever.
Just get a pump first. Just do some push-ups.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what do you think are like some of the biggest benefits of being fit, other than looking a certain way?
I think what it does for, um, I think the benefits of being fit, obviously, um, what it does for your mobility, what it does for your ability to just be agile and move and do other things in your life. I know, like with clients that I've worked with, especially people that have worked behind a desk for a long time,
Yeah,
they have very limited mobility after 10 or 15 years of just sitting in that
yeah,
standard position.
yeah. You've probably seen this. There's research that just associates the amount of time that you just spend sitting with just overall mortality, like all kinds of disease, and as you get older, just sitting there doing nothing all day is just terrible for the body.
Yeah, just being sedentary in general is way worse, I think, than we can even begin to understand, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that,
There's research on it. I've that's why like I even have a little routine where like every 20 or 30 minutes or so I stand up because I'm sitting. I mean, I'm in the gym in the morning and then I just sit in my work day. My average work day is, I don't know, 12 hours, 11 hours, and I'm sitting for all of it. So um, and a few days a week I'll do some cardio at night, but whatever. Otherwise, I'm just sitting. So I'll do like every 30 minutes or so I'll stand up and stretch and stretch my lower body, stretch my upper body. Just after reading, there were like, I don't know, 3 or 4 studies on this of specifically sitting. That it's just sitting there motionless is just bad for the body. So my body is not. I guess it's always kind of felt fine because of my routine, but yeah, I think it's a good idea to just not sit in the same position for like 4 hours at a time. You know what I mean?
yeah, and that's really good, because it's once you get used to doing that, once you get used to sitting for so long, it's actually hard to start to train your brain, to get out of that
Yeah.
to get out of that habit. I know that I've been in that loop many times, and so it's something that I do something similar now. Like, I'll be working or whatever, and I'll make sure to get up. Like I used to set a timer for every like 40 minutes, 45
Yeah.
minutes. I would get
Yeah.
up,
Yeah.
or I would just like go outside and walk and get some like fresh air or something.
Right.
So I think that's really important. Mobility aspect above anything else, like, is huge, especially for people that have had limited mobility due to
Right.
sitting. I think that's a huge benefit. Another benefit that I love too is uh, the it's interesting. A lot of times, our people we all want to control something, right? And
Mm-hmm.
like controlling something makes us feel better. The fact that we can feel like we're in control oftentimes gives us a sense of confidence, or it gives us a sense of hope.
Right.
Uh, and in reality, like regardless of whether that sense of hope or confidence is like not really built upon much,
Right.
if you believe it is, it can make the biggest difference in the world. And I think training for some people, putting them in that routine and giving them something to do on a very consistent basis that they're controlling the outcome of and that they are in charge of,
Yeah.
can just reap massive benefits in terms of how they view their space and how they view the world and
Yeah.
how they carry themselves and how their relationships are.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I totally agree with that. I think, it reminds me of Malcolm Gladwell's book, Outliers. I don't know if you read it, but
Yeah.
I thought it was a decent book. I didn't like that it seemed like he was kind of leaning on this message of that success just kind of boils down to luck, or that great success just kind of boils down to luck and a confluence of the right circumstances. I don't totally agree with that, but I think it just makes what you were saying makes me think of that because yeah, there are we look at life and what we're doing and going about things, and it can be on our in our personal lives, personal goals we want to achieve, work related or even hobby related or body related or relationships or whatever. I think that there are things. I mean, there are a lot of things out in the world that aren't under our control. Things can happen. Things do happen that we didn't anticipate or want. And we have to deal with them. But I think, like you were saying, if you can have if you have the mentality, you have the attitude that there are things that you can always do. There are always things you can be in control, and you can affect circumstances in your life, and you can affect positively, anything that kind of you come in contact with by your actions, and you can take actions to overcome, whatever kind of bad luck or whatever type of things come your way that you weren't planning for or hoping for. That just is, it's a huge shift in terms of how you're going to approach life, instead of just being a complete victim where you feel like, victimized by life, or you feel that everything is just random, and that there's nothing, or there's little you can actually do to determine your course in life, determine how things come out. You know what I mean?
Right.
And training it's a little microcosmic kind of version of that, where you can go in the gym every week, and if you do the right things, your body improves. You get stronger, you look better, you feel better, and that's something that it just is a little miniature demonstration that there always are. If you know what to do and you're willing to put in the work, you can make progress. Is it necessarily going to be as much as the other guy? Maybe not, but in terms of training, there can be various different reasons for that. It could be, genetics, it could be drugs, it could be whatever. But in terms of life, I think that it's the same way. Certain people, we tend to compare ourselves with a lot of other people, and that can be unhealthy. But that, in my experience, where if you have people that are very insecure and they're always looking to others and to see what they don't have, or what they wish they had or whatever, when a person's able to start making progress in their own lives, that tends to, the volume gets turned down a bit. You know what I mean?
Yep.
They become more secure in themselves. They become happy with where things are going. And I definitely think that working out regularly just helps instill that it's kind of a worldview, I think. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's totally, it just totally makes you see things in a different way. And one thing, have you read the book called The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So one thing I like about what he says in there is, whenever you're trying to change a habit, like you can basically you change the behavior. You have the cue and you have the reward, and the behavior is always what you do. That's the habit. One thing I thought was really cool about what he said, though, was you can get people to change a routine, but under a lot of stress, we tend to go back. So it's why an alcoholic that will be in AA and for like 20 years, be sober for 20 years, have something drastic happen.
Yeah.
And then he finds himself at the bar that night drinking his sorrows away after 20 years of being sober.
Right.
And he says the biggest factor that tends to hold people together with long-term change is some type of belief and hope in the fact that they can actually change and that they can actually get better, or make their circumstance different, whatever it is that they're focusing on.
Yeah.
And that's what I like about what you said there is, you may have certain circumstances, but having that particular locus of control in your life gives you a certain view, it gives you a certain way of seeing things, and that's almost kind of like the belief you're creating, and it's a belief that you need, regardless of whether it makes sense to anyone else. If it makes sense to you and it works for you, then by all means, do it.
Yeah, I totally agree. So let's talk a little bit of training stuff. So what is your exercise routine look like right now? Like in terms of weightlifting, cardio, what are you doing?
So yeah, I'm basically, I love bodybuilding stuff, and I was in Thailand for 2 months, so I really trained very haphazardly. I wasn't able to stay very structured, so I spent a lot of time just I would go into the gym and we would focus on 5 movements. I do chin-ups, rows, dips, Romanian deadlift, stuff like that, just to stay in shape. But now that I'm back, my preferred method is basically right now I'm kind of doing an upper-lower split. Quite a bit of volume over 4 days a week, and then once I start to really adjust to that, I'll probably move to a 5-day-a-week split, or like a 3-day on, 1 day off, like a push-pull legs type thing.
Right.
I really like volume. I really like doing bodybuilding stuff. I don't really do cardio at all. The only cardio I guess what I would do are complexes towards the end of my training sessions, or ab type of splits or ab type of supersets.
Like circuits.
leg raises, circuits, that type of
Yeah.
stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my preferred method of training.
Cool. And you probably focus on just, the bigger compound lifts.
Yeah, it's mostly, I pick something, I guess, to gauge progress and to get better
Yeah.
at. So, like it might be a deadlift, might be a squat, might be a hack squat or a leg press or a bench press or whatever it is I'm focusing on.
Yeah.
And the rest of it is all built around just trying to make that mind muscle connection and try to get that pump and try to get as much of a stimulus as I can within that session.
Yeah.
And then look at my logbook next time and try to just get a little better.
Yeah, that's another important point that I talk about, especially because if you're new to weightlifting, you can pretty much do anything, and you're gonna be making good gains for your first 6 months. If you just show up in the gym, 5 days a week, and you can do goofy exercises and do a bunch of reps and whatever, and you're gonna make gains. But once those newbie gains are done, which in my experience, I don't know, I guess it seems to last maybe 6 to 8 months on the long side is kind of how it seems. Then it's much harder to you're not going to be adding weight to the bar every week, and then it becomes a game of just beating your last week's workout by. I mean, for me, it's like if I let's say I'm training legs or whatever, if I'm going to do 10 sets in that workout, if my first, let's say 2 or 3 sets, if I'm able to do 1 rep more with the same weight as the previous week, I'm happy. And you know what I mean? If I can just maintain the same reps and whatever that I did the week before, I'm happy there. And that's just beating your previous workout, even by a rep, is a little bit of progress. And that's just the way it is. I mean, as you get more and more conditioned, you're not going to be squatting whatever for 4 reps and then the next week add 20 pounds and squat that for 4 reps. That's just not how it goes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You got to work up, you're going to work up to 6 or 7 reps, and then you can add maybe that 10 pounds, and then you're back to 4. And it's just, because it's funny, I'll have people usually newer, like they'll go through that first 6 months where they're adding weight every week and they're like, this is amazing. And they'll get emailed sometimes like, oh, I'm not making progress anymore. And I always have to be like, well, what do you mean exactly you're not making progress? And then it'll be like, well, I'm not adding weight anymore every week. Like, yeah, but are you moving up in reps? Well, yeah, but I was adding 5 pounds to the bar every week first. Well, that's the joys of being new to it. But it becomes a game of like inches, just moving forward bit by bit over time,
Yeah, and helping people understand that just because you're not adding weight to the bar every week or every training session doesn't necessarily mean you're doing anything wrong, or doesn't necessarily mean that you're not gonna get there.
Yeah.
That's like the biggest thing for people like us who have been doing this for a long time. Like, I'm not near as strong as I used to be because I just don't care to be, but when I was pretty strong, I mean, it was to the point to where I would have to start gauging actual strength gains, by the month, and I would have to try to plan it in a manner that I could try to add 5 pounds to a lift at the end of the month instead of saying, oh well, I'm just gonna aim for every week or whatever. And that kind of, it wears at you after a while because you just think, oh, I'm not really making progress. But that's when you start to really dig into, okay, well, what are the other ways that I can make progress? Can I shorten my rest periods? Can I add another set? Can I add another rep? What?
Sure.
Then you have to get really creative and
it also depends on what you want to do with your body. Once you kind of build that foundation and you have the size that you want, you have to kind of make a decision where you want to go. Do you want to focus on getting stronger? Do you want to just kind of maintain where you're at? Do you want to work more on the muscle endurance side and be able to do a bunch of body weight type movements, or just do a bunch of be able to do a lot of reps? And I think that for a lot of guys, I guess it kind of comes down to they still kind of want to build that ideal physique, with the right proportions, and that kind of dictates how you're going to be training. But then again, there are I've talked to quite a few guys that have put in a good 7, 8, 9, 10 years of proper heavy weightlifting. They've built great physiques, and now some of them like to do some CrossFit stuff here and there. Some of them like to do different types of routines just to challenge themselves, because they're not so concerned now with having to build up their back a little bit more, or build up this or that a little bit more. Now they're able to have fun maintaining their physiques and doing something different.
Yeah, that's a good thing too. Fun is a great word to throw in there, because it's always fun when you're beginning and you're making constant progress and everything is kind of new to you.
Yeah.
And then when you graduate routines and you're finally on like an intermediate style routine, and you can still make progress in various ways, and then when it starts to slow down is when it becomes not so fun anymore.
Yeah.
Because you start to view it as like, oh, I'm going to go into the gym, and it's like a big guessing game. It's just like, am I going to get better today? Am I going to regress? And that's I think one of the biggest issues is we think that everything has to kind of revolve around that whole idea that we have based upon progression. And then what I always tell people too after a while is, depending on where you're at in your journey and your training age, strength is not something that is even really that reliable. Strength can be affected in so many ways.
Yeah. From
your sleep, from your mood, from your emotions, how you dealt with your weekend, what you did at work, what you spent your willpower on. I mean, it could be many things, and you can go into the gym expecting to do a heavy triple, but when you're warming up and your warm up weight feels heavy, and then learning how to deal with that is another issue in itself, and realizing that because you're not strong as you thought you were today doesn't necessarily mean that your training is not working or hasn't worked.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
it's just one of those variables.
You have bad workouts. It's happened to all of us. We've all experienced that for sure. And for me, what I just kind of chalk it. I just don't let it bother me. I just, like you say, like I know what I'm doing, and I know how my body works, and I want to see, like, I'm looking more, as you were saying earlier, I'm looking more like, I would like to see a small improvement each week. Ideally, I would get at least another rep, something like that. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. But more important to me is over the course of play, 1 to 3 months, I want to see. I would like my focus on my training is right now I'm doing a periodized program that I start with some very heavy lifting, like some powerlifting type movements, and then the middle portion of my workout, the bigger 6 sets or so, is in the 4 to 6. It's still heavy, 80-85% of my 1 rep max. Yeah. And then I'm finishing with some higher rep movements. But so I'm focusing, and the majority of my workout is still kind of myofibrillar. Like I want to see myself getting stronger. But if I come in and have a bad workout and I just am not able to hit my lifts, okay, I don't freak out of it and wonder what's wrong. As you said, there are a lot of different things. Who knows? Maybe I was a little bit like, I'll have it sometimes where my shoulder workout is, I'm still feeling my shoulders a little bit from my chest. Well, whatever. That's just the way it is. Try to work through it, and and try to do better next week. And I think having a longer term view of what you're looking to achieve helps with that, as opposed to like, I gotta get better this week. I have more just like, I know what I'm here. Yes, I'm here to get better this week. I'm here to try to beat last week. But if I don't, no big deal. I'm 29 years old. I have a lot of years ahead of me to beat last week's workout. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
Where this is a lifestyle. It's not like I'm not trying to, I'm not following some weird crash quick fix. Like, I got to hit this by this point so I can, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's just having that long-term view and long-term approaches is ultimately what's going to make you succeed or not. And that's regardless of, you've been doing this for 10 years or 6 months, and understanding that it's all about like, hey, you're not just lifting for a while to get a look and then done with
just give it up. Yeah.
Because it's not realistic.
Yeah.
So
totally. And what about the nutrition side? Like, do you follow any particular type of dietary protocol, or like, are you into intermittent fasting or traditional type of dieting, or?
Yeah, so I'm like hardcore paleo as you can get. Like, if I can't hunt it down and kill it, I'm not eating it.
Okay.
No. Like, I'm just really not. I'm just joking. I don't really care about fads or paleo, intermittent fasting, or anything like that. No, I was totally kidding.
Yeah, I don't think when we were talking about it, I don't know if we ever really talked about it. So I was like, oh, shit, I didn't know that.
Yeah, like I totally flip switch over a week. No, basically, I'm a very middle of the road type of guy.
Yeah.
I think that whole foods should comprise 90 to 95% of your diet. I'm not opposed to having some junk in your diet. I'm not opposed to eating what you want. I think that all those things are really important. But I think at the end of the day, the most important thing is to follow something that fits what is good for you. And I mean, of course I have a general baseline. I think getting enough protein, which is about a gram per pound of body weight, and not doing low carb and not doing low fat, trying to find a balance there. I prefer a more higher carb diet.
Yeah, me too.
Just because I feel better, I look better.
Yeah. Your training is way better.
My training is better. I'm in a better mood. If I'm, depending on how sedentary I am, just with sitting most of the day, if I don't have at least 150 grams to 200 grams of carbs as a baseline, I'm just not, going to perform my best when it does come time to train.
Yeah.
And on the training days, depending on how much I'm going to have more carbs than that.
Yeah.
But even for clients, like I try to steer them away from the idea that you got to go really low carb in order to lose fat. I mean, that's sure you can lose fat by going low carb or low fat, but it's all more a matter of just like you said, playing a numbers game and keeping everything in check and making sure you maintain a deficit, have a time frame that you're focusing on, and
using exercise to drive that as well, as opposed to, I mean, you've probably seen research that just shows that even the metabolic adaptation that occurs when you diet is less when you are using a smaller deficit but really using exercise to drive that calorie burn. There's a difference in the body between, if let's say you're just in a 500 calorie deficit with no exercise, that's just straight restricting calories, that is not that it's unhealthy, but it is not as optimal as, let's say you were in a 250 calorie deficit from your diet and then a 250 calorie deficit on top of that, burning through exercise. There's just a difference in the body. And, when I diet, I actually usually set myself at about, for me, it's about a 20% deficit just from diet alone and then the exercise on top of that. But I think that, using exercise to drive fat loss is also a big part of it, and not trying to, I would much rather prefer especially if I'm needing to get really lean, moving more as opposed to cutting my calories more. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
And of course, you only can do that so much. You can't get to that point where you're doing 2 hours of cardio a day. But I try to get up to lifting 5 days a week and doing probably about 30 minutes of HIIT cardio 4 to 5 times a week would be the most I would do. But I prefer to push toward that as opposed to just dropping my calories more and more.
Totally agree with that. I think another thing I think is important to mentioning too is training in itself is, I think it's much more important than people who especially are really big on nutrition I think they'll downplay it a lot. They'll say, well, nutrition is 80% or 90% of your results, which I don't agree with that. I agree to an extent that it's really important, but I don't think we should place a number on it like that. I think that having your training set up in a manner to create what you want as an outcome. So somebody that I read all the time, his name is Amir Siddiqui, and he's got a lot of great ideas, and some of my really good friends have worked with him. And something he says, and I really ascribe to this belief, is your training is what dictates where your food goes, and your training program creates a pathway for your macronutrients and what your body does with them. If you
that's a good way of putting it.
If you are constantly, if you're not doing any exercise at all, and you're dieting, what is telling your body to keep the lean body mass and burn off the body fat, or you know what I'm saying? So, or what's telling your body to store this and not that? But when you train really hard, you're creating a metabolic demand. Your muscles need the micronutrients. They need the amino acids. Your body is burning the carbohydrates. So
and it's also storing them in the muscles, and you can have glycogen supercompensation where
all of those things.
It'll store even more, which then that's less carbs to go to fat storage. And nutrient partitioning, I guess, would be the general kind of bodybuilding term for it.
Yeah, that's the word, and it's just that's one thing I think is really important. And so I tend to not skimp on the calories as much, especially in the beginning, because if you can get away with exercising a little more and eating more, and it's in line with your schedule and it's not a burden to you, then it's I would rather do that and then that gives you something later to maintain with, as opposed to saying, okay, we got 10 weeks to get really lean, let's drop you down to 1,600 calories and see where you end up.
Yeah.
Because
like,
then
I just saw a video. I couldn't actually make it through the whole thing, but it was a Q&A video with Jeff Seid, and he was saying that for cutting, he recommends 1,000 calories below BMR.
Oh my God.
And I mean, I don't think he's not the brightest dude, so he probably meant below TDE, like total daily energy expenditure. But even that, like that's one too much, and you can't just do a one size fits all. What does that mean for the girl whose TDE or TDEE is 1,800 calories a day? Like, what does that mean for her? She's supposed to eat 800 calories a day, and then if she took his advice literally, she goes, okay, well, standard catch McCardle, my BMR is 1,300 calories a day, 1,400 calories a day. It's a small girl, right? Yeah. So I should be eating 300 or 400 calories a day. All right, let's do this. Jeff Seid says so. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of bad diet advice out there, and that
also comes at the expense of trying to lump everyone into one category and saying this is what everyone should do.
Yeah,
that's
a big part of it is. I talk about this in an article on my website on speeding up the metabolism to make weight loss easier, and just that point of you want ideally when you come into it's time to lose fat, you want your metabolism to be as high as you want it to be. And really, actually, it's like metabolic inefficiency. We want our metabolisms to be, because an efficient metabolism would be a metabolism that can keep us alive on very little energy. So in a sense, we want our metabolisms to be very inefficient. We want it, to be able to feed our bodies a bunch of energy, and we want our bodies to, use up that energy to keep us alive. And that's what metabolism is, without storing fat. So if the faster your metabolism is, the more food you can eat, the better position you're in for fat loss. And it's actually 100% necessary. If you want to get really lean, like if you're a guy and you want to get, down to the 6 to 8% or 6 to 7% range, or if you're a girl, you want to be, down in the 14-15% range, you have to make sure that you can't be starting that process, with a metabolism that's running at 60% capacity.
Well, sure.
You're going to burn it out, and you're going to end up, with metabolic damage, where you're only able to eat some piddly amount of food every day, and you maintain, you won't even reach your goal. You'll just end up being stuck at too high of a body fat percentage, eating nothing. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And there are some people that actually believe that a really robust metabolism, like you were saying, or being inefficient, to say it the way you did, is actually kind of, they think, the key to remaining young and remaining healthy, because...
Yeah, the longevity, like permanently restricting calories, that whole thing.
Well, no. So, like, I'm thinking of the opposite end of the spectrum.
Oh, the opposite.
So you have the camp that believes that calorie restriction and fasting is like the holy grail to living longer, which it might make you live a little bit longer, but what is it doing to your overall well-being, your overall health?
Absolutely.
But then some people believe that we should try in a way to keep our metabolisms really healthy and burning at a really high rate, to mimic other life forms or younger people that have really high metabolisms and that are full of energy and vitality, and try to maintain that for a long time. I can actually send you some stuff on it later, but please do. It's a neat concept, because if you think about it, like kids, for instance, right? They are, of course, it's their age, but they haven't been exposed to a lot of stress. They haven't been exposed to a lot of the food that we've eaten for so long. So their metabolisms are naturally robust and naturally high. Their body temperatures are naturally high.
Yeah.
And they move the best. They feel the best. They have the most energy. Yeah. And then over time,
and then muscle mass comes into that as well.
Exactly.
Research has shown you start losing muscle in your early 20s, actually, if you don't do anything, and then you just waste away over the years, and that lowers BMR as well. So when you're younger and your body's building that muscle, I mean, there's a vitality that comes with that.
Yeah, and there's some people that really believe that maintaining a youth-like metabolism is essentially the key to long-term health and vitality. So
I could see that for sure.
I read about that stuff quite a bit, so I'm interested.
Because that would require exercise as well. I mean, you couldn't just do that eating a bunch of food, really. I mean,
No, it totally does, and that kind of points back to the research that you and I were talking about earlier. That movement in most any form is good for you.
Yeah.
You know, if we're showing that being sedentary is taking years off of our lifespan, then obviously movement is good.
Yeah. What's the obvious corollary is that the body, it's just, it's meant to be moved around, and that, of course, just makes sense from an evolutionary standpoint. We weren't really meant to sit in a chair and stare at a computer screen all day.
That's right. Unless it's really cold outside and we have hot chocolate, then it's okay.
then it's okay. Then genetically, we're building that in.
Yes.
Yeah, cool. So before we wrap up here, I try to keep them somewhere around an hour. I could go on forever. I'm sure you could too. But
yeah.
Why don't you just tell me quickly, and just tell the readers and the listeners quickly, like, what are you working on these days? Kind of what do you have planned for this year, and also where can people find you if they want to learn more about what you do? Sure.
So the best place to find me is just jcdfitness.com. Yeah. That's my homepage. That's where my blog and all my articles are. You can find pretty much anything about me there that you need to. I'm currently working on a series, and the time of release is unknown, but I'm kind of working on a series of habit-based fitness products. So I've actually got I got a product out right now called LGN 365, okay. and that's kind of like an all-encompassing.
That's like your flagship product. Right?
That's like the resource. Like if you need to know about fat loss or muscle gain, and you need an education, and you're lost, buy that. But I'm also working on some things that are very habit-based. I've become really, really interested in habit-based literature and the psychology and how we actually create things and do things, and trying to create some things that will help people in the long term with that.
That's cool.
Yeah, and then
what are anything you want to share on that? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so specifically, one thing that I've paid attention to just within my clients, right? Like working with clients. Mm-hmm. We're all really good at kind of following like a plan that someone gives us, right? Like we're all really good at that. And I think we all need that to an extent. I think we kind of need an outside factor, whether it be a book, whether it be a forum link where we got a program from or something.
Absolutely. I mean, it's like that learning anything. It's great to have someone that's already done it and that can just get you going in the right direction. Say, you don't have to pay attention to all this other stuff. Just do this for this period of time, and you're going to get results, and that's always nice to have.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think that's a huge component, and I won't ever overlook that. But something that I'm really interested in is helping people that have already kind of gotten past that initial phase of seeing the results and getting to a point to where they want to be. Also helping them realize that to get any further, it's really kind of in their own hands, because they need to start making things work for themselves and kind of figuring out the best things that they need to do. And what does that boil down to? It boils down to figuring out the steps and the habits that you need to build and that you need to take, because I can coach you for so long, but you know your life better than I do, and the things deep down that you need to work on and that you need to change. And so I'm basically trying to come up with some practical ways and come up with some ideas that I can, and then I've been instilling within my clients, and I've been helping my clients with them, trying to come up with a way to help people see it from a kind of top-down perspective and say, okay, I've gotten this far, and now I need to take it up another level. Here are the three main things in my life that I need to do on a consistent basis to make this work. And then they can recruit any outside factors that they need, whether they need a coach to oversee their diet or whether they need somebody to, check in with or whatever. But at the core, they don't really need to, read every latest fitness book or pop a DVD if they need to get in shape. It's more of like, hey, I've got the tools, I got the resources, now I just need to do it.
Yeah, totally. That's awesome.
So.
Yeah, cool. Well, keep me posted on that once you have them released.
For sure.
Okay, awesome. Well, is there anything else you'd like to share?
No, that's pretty good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, sure thing. It was great. Awesome. Well, again, this is Mike Matthews, musclelife.com, with JC from JC Deen Fitness. And thanks for listening. You can subscribe if you're on iTunes, or if you're watching this on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel. More stuff coming. So thanks for taking the time to be here with us. See you next time.